England finish top of Group C with 5 points. France, Spain, Germany and Portugal are on the other side of the draw. The plan has worked.
The master plan.
This could be the greatest example of the old Muhammad Ali rope-a-dope.
Yeah. But the problem, the backfire part of that is that, you know, England could legitimately play, you know, the current iteration of the Sex Pistols and not win in the next round. Like, they could play the Wurzel.
Scott and Oggy.
Yeah,
we win.
We would get beaten by anyone at this point.
I think Southgate, though, was looking over at the Slovenia manager all the time and goes, is that all you got? Is that all you got, big boy?
Also CTE.
Do you think that...
We're going to get that sooner or later.
Do you think this whole tournament is bad? You know, like when you're in a bad
it's been good.
We're the worst part of it.
No. The British teams have been sticking the place out.
This tournament is like an amazing banging house party, and us and Scotland are stuck in our rooms refusing to come out.
Right.
That's what it is. Everybody else has been great, Pete. Have you watched any other game? Be honest.
He's watched France.
I've watched more games this tournament than ever before.
Don't tell me that when you got home late last night you
did not do that.
No. For my research purposes, I'm going to watch Denmark versus Serbia in its entirety.
No, I woke up at 7 o'clock. If you're ever trying to piece together what you did last night on Instagram profiles, bad idea. Right. If you're doing it on Vish's, worse. Ooh. So yeah, it's good stuff.
He stitched you up, is he?
He may have done,
Yeah, just dirty little thing.
You didn't stitch me up. I was having a delicious Baileys at 1 a.m.
We had many delicious Baileys. Lovely.
Just call it a Baileys.
Is there any other type of Baileys?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No team in Group C scored more than 1 goal in a game for the first time in the history of the Euros. Now, I said...
You're welcome, Euro.
I said...
Is that a Group C record or just a group record?
I think it might be a group record.
No, but it's important that we get goal inflation down. I think that I said...
Austerity football. Come on.
I said after Scotland-Hungary that... I quoted Jonathan Wilson in his piece in The Guardian saying that game was a good example, or great, argument rather, for whittling the Euros back down to 16 or even 8 teams. England certainly at the forefront of that argument.
I think England should whittle it down to 0 teams. England should be banned from the next 2 tournaments.
Don't penalise Austria.
They've done great.
I still resent Steve McLaren for what he did, but actually maybe he had the right idea as a good manager.
We're not going to bother this one this year, lads. It's for your own benefit.
Yes, exactly. The players, there was more booing. There was apparently 3 cups that were thrown at Gareth Southgate's his body. One of the journalists, when they were asking Southgate, did ask it in a way that like it genuinely was like some sort of awful event happening. I mean, you were aware that there were 3 beer cups thrown at.
And Gareth answered it.
Mr. Southgate, a 3rd beer cup.
Just hit your waistcoat. Although he's not wearing the waistcoat anymore. Yeah. Gareth Southgate answered that. I mean, we should talk about the game, but while we're on this, Gareth Southgate answered that question about the cups and the booing in the most Gareth Southgate way possible. Like, I don't know if you saw it, he just went, well, it's certainly an unusual environment in which to work. Like, the most management speak, calm bloke.
He did say, I understand it, and then moved on to say, well, look,
it's just such a spin though, isn't it? What's it been like since people have been smashing your door down and setting fire to your car? It's an unusual environment to work in.
You can only work with the variables you're given.
Yeah, it's true.
And my car is on fire.
Yeah. Well, this wasn't the performance England fans wanted to see. They thought, right, come on, against Slovenia, you've got to raise it, you've got to get a good result, get some goals in there, and none of that really happened. I mean, yes, there looked like a little bit more purpose in some England play. Yes, they looked a tiny bit fitter, but ultimately they were playing a side who knew a point was good enough, and credit to Slovenia, who defended for their lives, didn't give England anything.
Celebrated like they won the World Cup as well.
And they're through. Yeah. It's a famous... it's a famous result because of, it's gone through, and obviously England have one of the fancied sides, but they've done themselves very, very well. But what are your thoughts on England, Pete Donaldson, on this on this morning we find ourselves trying to pick up the nation, quite frankly?
Do we still know what England are about until we face somebody who's actually quite good, who want to go out and
I was thinking that
goals?
There is a little bit of a thought to say that once the knockouts come, England could click into gear, or once a better side, it would shock them. There was a little malevolent voice in my head thinking, finish second and get Germany. Because do you know what I mean? You can't
because the question's answered one way or another.
Yeah.
Then.
Right. By the way, incredibly small voice.
He didn't get the microphone last night, did he?
Compared to somebody that have a voice in your head, I can imagine.
Let's leave that for Ramble Uncut.
I think the way to answer the question is possibly that England have had questions asked of them in these 3 games, and they've all been kind of variations of the same question, right? Which is,
what have you got?
Can you break us down? And can you punish us, etc., etc. Now, even with the Denmark game, where England sort of retreated within themselves and became far less than the sum of their parts, and a lot's been made of that graphic of the average positions they had against Denmark. Even in that game, the only goal England conceded was from miles out, and that can happen, right? And it's very difficult to criticise the defending for that goal specifically. So if you put that to one side, that's the only goal England have conceded. They've struggled really badly with their tempo. They've struggled really badly to break teams down who've set up to defend against them, and they've struggled really badly with width and balance, right? All those things can be addressed. It's just that when they approach this stuff, they don't seem to want to do it in a way that people expect. They don't want to move the ball quick. They don't want to move the ball from side to side. They don't want to make changes to give themselves width to ask different types of questions. And to me, it's just as clear as day that, that's that game last night. Slovenia are going to make the middle of the pitch really congested. They're going to make it tough for you to go through the middle. Yeah. If you just pick a player on the right who wants to cut inside all the time, and a player on the left who isn't a natural left-sided player, and a left-back who isn't a natural left-back, and give yourself absolutely no width whatsoever, they're rubbing their hands together because they're saying, come through us, you won't get through us. Yeah. They've also got one of the world's best goalkeepers, by the way, who would back himself.
Tested.
Yeah, he was tested with once or twice, but for his level, not really.
Saves that he should make.
And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to answer a question in a completely kind of incorrect way, in my view. So the way it lends itself to who they get in the next round, if they get Netherlands in the next round, who are an absolute basket case themselves, and it may just be
baskets with a bit of quality.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is it becomes knockout football, and it becomes you have a go, we have a go. As I said to you a second ago, England will either step up to that and it'll be a ding-dong like it was against France, and they might come off on the right end of that, or they might not, or they'll carry on playing the way they're playing and they'll just get put out of their misery. They'll basically get taken around the back of the bins and shot in the head. So it's the question's going to be answered sooner or later. It's all we deserve, Vish. We're lucky to be behind the bins, not in the bins.
But do you not think that this is all about having a tournament where you can go through in third? Like, there's been a lot of performances like this where people just set up to just frustrate.
But England have been incredibly poor. I mean, some people have rightly said that, say, France have been poor, and we'll come on to them a little bit later, of course. But the difference is that, and France have been poor, and it's not been very good, but at least they create a few chances. Like against the Netherlands, they should have won the game. Do you know what I mean? England are not even creating chances. How many goal-scoring chances have they created? The 2 that they've put away. Yeah. There's been a couple where
the offside one, which was a narrow offside last night.
It's offside.
Yeah, but it's still it's a move that creates an opportunity, isn't it?
Or you could say the Slovenian line took care of it.
Yeah, maybe.
I think we're all agreed on what England have done. Why it's strange. It's uninspiring. What have England now got to do? He made one change, Trent for Gallagher, and gave it 45 minutes because clearly it wasn't making a difference. Mainu came on and looked a little bit more likely, but you could then argue that Slovenia had completely retreated for that second half. So, Vish, if you're the England manager, what are you doing?
I don't know. I genuinely don't know, because you know what it feels like? It feels, and I'm glad you all get to experience this, it's genuinely like watching Manchester United during the season. Because a lot of the issues are very similar. Yeah. The little things like, whenever we move from side to side without the ball, we're always late. Yeah. We're always chasing the ball. We're always chasing the ball. There's no there's no preempting where the ball's going to go or how you're going to win it back. I don't want to talk about personnel here in terms of what I would change, but what I would say is there is a weird knack of essentially the players. So if we use it specifically about yesterday's game, there was all this talk about the criticism they're getting and what they wanted to do better, and we didn't really see that. And what was interesting is that, like, tactically, everything was exactly the same, barring Conor Gallagher, who was playing further forward than Bellingham yesterday, who was doing the things that we said that that Gallagher would do, because it's what Gallagher does: energy, pressing, that kind of stuff.
But not keeping the ball particularly.
No. But it was a bit golden retriever, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like he was just basically chasing the ball. But then everyone else was doing exactly the same thing. Bellingham was out left. Foden was deeper on the left or in the middle. Kieran Trippier was basically in no man's land for most of the game. I think he's cooked, to be honest. I think if you're gonna, of all the decisions that Southgate's made, I think going with Trippier as your first choice left back, which he was when he selected the squad because Shaw was injured. I think that should be the the biggest stick to beat him with, because it's just spoke of a lack of clarity throughout. But broadly speaking, evidently there was no tactical shift in what they did yesterday, despite saying that there was going to be. So I don't really know what they're going to do for the first round of the knockout stages. Apart from what Pete said, is when they get slapped, they've got to slap someone back.
Yeah.
That's the only way. It's not fight or flight, but it's the only way you're going to see the trueness of this England team, how good it can be. Is when someone actually hurts them when it matters.
You're right.
The best thing that England did last night, I think, was when Anthony Gordon came on, and it's not what you bring Anthony Gordon on for, but he did this kind of defence split and pass at one point, and he was on for 3 minutes, 5 minutes or something.
That was a completely pointless substitution, given the fact that in this tournament we've not even seen any injury time. I don't see what the benefit of that is. If he's doing that, if he's doing that to say, we're going to top the group. We've seen the other score. We're going to be top of the group.
It was like a 39-year-old player, wasn't it?
It's like giving him a bit of experience or whatever, or giving him a bonus because he's trained hard during the week, which doesn't really apply in international football. It seemed pointless. But to pick up on what Vish said, all of which I agree with, by the way, surely, Vish, that just points you back to what I was saying a second ago, which is they just need to play with more width. And I think when you play with more width, it can give you more tempo, because it can mean that you can drag players out of position a bit easier. You can switch it up a lot more. The problem is, I'm not saying they're a good team at the moment, because I don't think they are, and I completely agree with the Trippier thing. That's going to look like a really, really poor decision in long term, I think, in retrospect. It's easy for us to have hindsight, but I think you're right to say that. What exacerbates this is the narrowness of how we're playing. You wonder whether Walker's got it in him still as well now. He wasn't really affecting the game much. Maybe it's just a symptom of how we're going to play in generally. But there's no width really at all.
Yeah.
And one thing that doesn't look great, and Marcus, it'd be interesting in your take on this, because you guys have kind of alluded to it. He's now, in 3 games, given Declan Rice 3 different midfield partners.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like, and your next midfield partner for this game.
What I'd love to know is, not saying I'm some kind of tactical genius or whatever, because obviously I'm not, but what I'd love to know is what Southgate is expecting to be the outcome of starting with Trent Alexander-Arnold, who then Jim was very hard. Jim said, look, I think it's weird how a load of Liverpool fans have said that Trent's been made a scapegoat when he isn't. I think he possibly has unintentionally been made a scapegoat by the way he's been dropped out and then brought back in as a sub slightly differently. But I'd love to know what Southgate's expectation of the outcome is when you go Trent Alexander-Arnold, not worked, Conor Gallagher in, give that 45 minutes, that's not worked, Mainu, different types of player all in the same position. And to me, it just feels very, very confused, very, very kind of, I'm scrapping around here trying to get some kind of solution. I don't really know how to find it.
I thought it was more management by numbers to a point last night, particularly with the Gordon substitution. I think he wanted to basically leave the group stage and be able to say that a lot of these players have already got time on the pitch
minutes
at a major tournament.
I think that I think what's happening here is that Southgate watched his side qualify pretty comfortably, beat Italy twice, the second being a much better performance towards the end of 2023, the halcyon days of October, November 2023, and he saw his side play front foot aggressive football where they pressed high, and they fairly handedly beat a decent side, not a side that you wouldn't think would win the Euros, and he thought, right, here we go. This is what we're going to do. And the friendlies this year have been a bit bitty due to injuries and so on, but
what's changed since then, though?
Well, the writing was beginning to appear on the wall with injuries and with, a couple of, as I say, like that, and against that Brazil friendly, it was like, this doesn't look quite right. But you could say, well, Kane wasn't. And I think that these are things he goes, but that player wasn't there, and we get that player back. And actually, Erik ten Hag made a point that some people will have seen on Dutch TV after England's first or second game in this tournament. And Ten Hag said the thing is with Southgate, what he does is he basically makes the team compact so they're really hard to beat, and then he relies on the moments or quality from his players. Now, a lot of people, as you mentioned, sort of alluded to there, Vish, went, well, I mean, game recognises game. Of all people who made well.
Yeah, Spider-Man.
He had the quote by going, my guy.
It wasn't criticism. He was like, I love this.
The words came out of his mouth and he looked around and went, which I agree with.
Put that muck in my arms.
Yeah, exactly. But it was telling, and I think that Southgate, as we've talked about in previous tournaments, he's done his thing, and I don't want to previous tournaments. And I think that's what he's been relying on. And as we've seen against 3 sides that England should not have too much trouble against, they've really, really laboured. And he has to do something, and this is why we see, all right, well, we'll take that player out and we'll put that player there, and that should probably, and I think basically, guys, just run a bit faster and do a bit more of the intense stuff, and it should get better. Well, of course it would get better if you do that, but you have to have a better plan. And also, the big question now for me is, are those players... have they got it in them? Jude Bellingham, they said in Spain the second half of the season he began to fade. You understand, a bit intense season at the most intense football club in the world. He's a young man, etc., etc. So no criticism to him there. Bellingham is beginning to fade, and you can see that his touch was not there last night. He ran a bit and a bit of effort. It wasn't happening. We see with Harry Kane, he looks kind of half fit. Now, I don't like a knee-jerky reaction where you kind of go, right, play the under-21s and put Boris Johnson in charge or some shot like that.
But as you're saying outside, give it to the nurses. Yeah.
Exactly. However,
there's none left. There's literally none left, mate, I'm afraid.
A big decision.
What are we clapping for?
A big decision needs to be made now.
Definitely.
A big decision needs to be made. Maybe two, but definitely one. And I'll say something. The one little hint of a positive was perhaps Cole Palmer.
Yeah,
Cole Palmer looks
I really
fresh.
want to do that when I wanted to score, so I could do
and again, I understand. I'm now in danger of falling into that trap of let's take him out, put him in, and then everything will be fine. I don't think everything's going to be fine. However, you have a fresh player there who does not look fazed by anything. Right, the guy could be in an earthquake.
When he came on, it was a bit like, what have you cunts been doing? What are you playing at?
Yeah, and like turning up and two babies just covered in chocolate. Yeah. You're like, what have you been up to?
Yeah. Exactly, yeah.
Your dog's accidentally eating a candle.
Exactly.
Fucking hell.
And that would mean...
Cole Palmer doesn't like you with it a candle.
Exactly. That would be, for me, dropping Bellingham for the next game, actually, because I think Foden looks fresher and Foden looks like...
Well, you could argue, Marcus, you talk about knee-jerk reactions and stuff. Look, I think there's a lot to credit the idea that my view would be, with the exception of Pickford, obviously he's done nothing wrong. Gay, he was made a mistake here or there, but it's really been very good overall. Foden is going to get flack, but I think what I like about Foden in whatever position he plays is that he's always trying to make things happen. All the criticism generally being accused, that England have been accused of, I'm not saying Foden's been great, but I don't think he's been guilty of the same mistake.
No, I don't.
He always wants to be on the ball.
Yeah.
He always wants to make things happen.
Yeah.
He's doing what he's told as well.
He's following instructions pretty well.
But he's a bit caged at the moment.
I would have him through the middle, as I said. But other than that, maybe Rice possibly, who I thought was okay last night and I thought did well in the first game. Other than that, I think you can make a case for any of them to be changed out, because it's not really been anywhere near good.
But that's the kind of wholesale changes that I wouldn't do, because I think that's a bit unnecessary. But we're in the situation now where a lot of people are saying the same things. For crying out loud, get Anthony Gordon on that left side. How many people say that? How many? And this is it. We've seen this with basically with Sven's England. We go back to them as well. With other sides, it's a bit like, oh, I'd have him. Oh, are you sure? Oh, I might do this. It's when almost like the nation seems unified in play that guy there.
But my point, and the Gordon thing's a really good one, and I think for that is the reason for that is it gives you something different. I just feel like if you're Slovenia and you're going in there mucking bullets, like digging your heels in to get a point, and it would be. We always come across as like really bitter and patronising when we say this kind of stuff as England fans, but it is a big result for them to go through in the group stage and to get a draw against England. They won't care how shit England were. No. They'll be like, we made them shit and we're proud of that, right? Yeah. I feel like with the narrowness of how they play, and I know I sound a bit like a broken record, if you're those two centre-backs and maybe those two midfield players that sat in last night, you want Saka to cut inside all the time because there's about fucking 4 players that can stop him playing. You don't want someone out there wide stretching the game. Look how big Austria make the pitch when they've got the ball. It's really tough to defend against. One of the basic principles of like football is when you've got the ball, make the pitch as big as possible. When you haven't got the ball, make it as small as possible. England do neither of those things. Gordon would at least help them to do that. It comes down to whether Southgate is brave enough or courageous enough, or perhaps he just doesn't even see it. Perhaps he's watching something completely different to us and he's got his own way of looking at things. But if it comes down to courage or bravery, he needs to show that he is brave enough to say, I'm going to make 2 or 3 changes. The fact that he didn't make it last night is, I think, really indicative. I said this to you guys on Monday. I said, the last thing we said on Monday, I said, if it comes up to the game Tuesday night and all he's done is changed out Trent for Conor Gallagher, it's bad news. The reason for that is because it's indicative of the fact that he doesn't want to roll the dice. Because the time you would roll the dice is the time when you're basically already through anyway. You're playing against someone who's not that good in the third group game.
You've got to have a roll. And as I say, he's wanting his team to click into gear like they did towards the end of last year. And due to fitness, due to energy, due to whatever, it's not happening. You can't just change that one player. And as I say, he needs to come up with something different. If Kane can't press or anything, then fine, you play,
I think that's been an issue that people have skirted over a bit too quickly.
Well, Kane.
Harry Kane.
Yeah. I would agree.
I don't think he should be dropped for the simple fact that he's an outstanding finisher. But yesterday, there were times where he wasn't running onto balls, having asked for them. There was a snapshot he took in the first half when he rolled it onto his left when there were better options. And the reason he did that is because he missed out on a chance 5 minutes ago. So he's reaching for everything now at this point.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I think
Foden slipped him in. And
he didn't go. Yeah,
he was like he had lead boots or common boots.
The worst kind of Kane is the one who drops deep and doesn't do anything else, and he wasn't even doing that yesterday.
Yeah. So basically, I'm almost answering the question you asked me about 5-10 minutes ago. What I would do, like I made this note yesterday. I don't know in what state. But but basically, I was thinking actually, if you're gonna rework everything, I reckon give Kane the space to be his full self, to be comfortable, to drop back. Like some of the, I know, like this feels a bit Nations League-y, but some of like Kane's best performances in an England shirt have been basically playing through balls.
So you need
specifically
Gordon
to
on
Rashford.
there.
So you need Gordon on there,
That's
but you also need Kane to have that space to drop into, because when he does that, he brings opposition players towards him, and other people can go around.
But Vish, who are the players that play alongside him when he does that? Rashford,
Yeah, quite fast players.
Players that go beyond him.
Yeah.
And even the guys who are quick, like a Saka. Or even
it's not quite Saka's game, is it?
No,
no,
it's not at all. It's not how he plays.
But it is Gordon's.
If Kane drops in deep, he did drop in a deep a little bit. I understand what Pete's saying. He did go looking for it a bit because, as Vish rightly says, he's reaching. But there's no flyer to go on and stretch it.
So I've referenced England's games in the back end of last year. Rashford's played in those games, whether he was a sub or he started. He scored against Italy. You have that runner that can go on beyond Kane, and I wonder. Southgate doesn't seem to be too bothered by what the media have said, and that's worked well from him in the past. We know previous England managers have gone, "Oh, well, I've got to play him because if I didn't play him,
he's getting Farage now, though, isn't he? It's milkshakes and eggs everywhere."
It's that bullishness where a manager who's probably not in the top 20 managers in the world would sort of go, well, I've got to stick to my guns because that's what a manager does.
Sure.
Ignoring all of the signs of
I think
big issues in his side.
Indeed, but I think the problem is that actually it's almost like Southgate is now almost betraying himself in that, because actually I'm looking at this side and I'm thinking, I think you have to choose 3 out of those 4 big names or something to get the balance, because we're all crying out specifically for Gordon for those reasons just cited. And again, I don't think, if England play Anthony Gordon, right, get your tickets for the final, lads. It's not that, but you're saying you've got a bit of balance, you've got to do all this. So I say a big decision needs to be made, and who are you going to take out? If you want Bellingham, then play Foden off the right and drop Saka. You have to.
But your point about the criticism and Southgate's behaviour and stuff is an interesting one, chiefly because, in my view, he's not really had any challenges in terms of the criticism.
Yeah.
Because for the first however many years of his reign, people were loving it because it was a fresh thing. Then there was a little bit of a wobble when some of the red tops tried to criticise him for quote unquote this wokeness and inclusivity stuff.
Well, that's the biggest thing. I
think. Then they fell into line on anyway. And it was actually quite fringe right wing people who were giving him shit about that, particularly after the racism that happened around the penalty shootout in Euro 2020. And really, there's been a resentment bubbling under, which I think has been up until about a year and a bit ago in the minority around how he plays and how conservative he is. But it's like people have just been waiting for this kind of shit, and they can go, right, now we were right all along kind of thing. It's like when they say all political life ends in failure.
Sure.
All England management life ends in failure, really, unless you win, which you never do. Sure. So it's like this Sisyphean kind of idea that it's always going to be an endless amount of work, which gives you meaning, but there's no end to it. This is the end game now. The only way it's not the end game now is if England somehow pull this out the fire. Yeah. And all this conversation goes back round to what Vish and you were saying at the start, which is that the question will be answered, and it'll either be you're going to get embarrassed or by going out on penalties to Slovakia or something, or you're going to go toe-to-toe with a good team and you're going to get slapped. The only other way out is to win a game. And at the moment, they don't look like they can win a game against anyone good.
And I suppose my frustration is a couple of people said to me at the the watch along last night. Like, you've defended Southgate a lot, but you seem to have sort of turned on him.
I like the way I'm just in my head. I'm just getting this vision of you being doorstepped as you're leaving the watch along.
Will you condemn
Mr. Speller?
Yeah. The public have a right to know, Mr. Speller. England's a big club.
I think though that look, we're all sort of frustrated and so on. It's almost like I want to sort of say to Southgate, actually stick to your guns like you did before, and don't play all the big names because you kind of feel like you have to.
Choose new guns,
but also as well, like you have to show something now, and don't fall into this trap which a lot of England managers have in the past, that the public seem to be able to see what better decisions would be made,
and that's fatal. And that is
fatal. And it's my worry that actually, because as I've said before, I've messages from people going, "Well, I told you Southgate was rubbish," or "Well, this is just why is this a surprise to everyone?" Again, I don't think this sullies his record in previous tournaments at all.
Copy paste, top of the group.
Exactly,
that's what you do.
Yeah, indeed. This one aside, I'm worried it's slipping away, and I think that it looks like a guy who's thinking, "Come on, lads, you've played well before. It's time for you to now play well again, and you've got to do something different, and surely you've got to have more than one plan of 4-2-3-1 or a partner for right."
But it's not. I mean, if we're going to end on a positive, let's chat on a positive note.
I keep thinking of Portugal 2016 and what they did.
Yeah, well, the point that's another way of looking at it. That's another angle to see. The way I would see it is that it's not too dissimilar. You talked about England scoring more goals in the World Cup, of course, but it's not too dissimilar from the group stage in Euro 2020. Right?
Sure.
Which was obviously played in 2021. And I'll tell you the key differences in my view. It was a low-scoring group. England snuck past Croatia.
England only scored 2 goals.
Czech Republic, Sterling scored both the goals in those 2 games. Obviously, 0 against Scotland, which was a stinker. It felt like England were playing within themselves.
Yeah.
My contention is that there was 2 differences between then and now. One is that the feel-good factor around England was much higher because it was much earlier in Southgate's tenure. Yep. The second thing is we were coming out of COVID. People were desperate for football. People were really positive. They couldn't believe their luck that the world had gone completely mad and it was coming back to normality again, which contributed to the feel-good factor. Neither of those 2 things are present here. But if you break it down to its component parts around the actual performances and the results, it's not identical, but it's very similar. England don't have quite as many points. They've snuck past 2 teams rather than 1 in Euro 2020. They topped their group. No one. There was a few other differences, like it's coming to games are being played at Wembley and all the rest of it. But all I'm saying is England didn't set the world on fire in that group. They've not done so here. But they're top of the group. There's an outside chance that they're playing within themselves. There's a chance of that.
That's what they're suggesting.
But that could be the case.
And it could be the case.
And so therefore you keep your powder dry and you go, do you know what, actually, in World Cup 2018, in the semi, we were gassed. Totally gassed. We were like a heavyweight in round 10 who'd never gone beyond 6 rounds. We couldn't do anything. We got pegged back by Croatia, who had loads more energy than us. That's a lesson we've learned. If they go out, we have to understand that the context is they're still top of the group and they're still in this tournament. A lot of this has been quite funereal because we've been talking about how bad England have been. They've won the group. Yeah. The knockout phase is when the business really starts. So you've got to give them a chance to give it an opportunity to do that. It's been shit. It's been slow. It's been obviously bad. Yeah. But let's not fall into that trap of wanting to look good and lose rather than look bad and win.
Yeah, have a bit of faith, Son.
Exactly.
No, you're right. You're right. You are right to say that because England have players that are good players, which is why this is where the frustration is, and there is still that chance. And also, Big Mama UEFA has been kind to us, Peter.
Yeah, well, she historically has under Southgate's tenure, though.
Exactly,
she has very much so. Yeah,
and England are in a side of the draw, which. Again, and I think this is the frustration, is if England click into gear and England really start playing well, there's a real chance here. Now, yes, they could go out with a whimper in the second round. We know all that because that is a possibility. But all the big sides are in the other side of the draw. And even if you're scared of Austria, which you bloody should be, by the way, the earliest England could face them would be in the semi-final now. Yeah. So it really does... it could be the Dutch. I actually think that would be quite a good tie for England because it's a big name.
Snap them out of this.
Indeed, because...
It happened in Euro 2020 again. They played Germany in the second round.
Exactly.
And there's a real test. And they won the game 2-0.
Yeah. And that was Southgate's best tactical game, I think.
Correct.
We would probably agree. And it showed you that him and Steve Holland... appropriately named if it was the tie.
What's he going to do?
Sorry,
Who's he going to support?
they're actually called The Holland.
Are they?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And he's Stephen Netherlands to give his full name.
Well, he's Stephen Sporting.
That's a deep cut, that bit.
Very deep. So yes, because again, if it is, say, a Slovakia or something, I think those players go, nah, they're going to sit deep, and no. So we shall see. We keep talking about the Dutch because
it sounds
a little bit more likely.
I think some of the absolute boffins,
yes,
over at Opta or wherever they live these days.
Give me percentages.
63% Netherlands, apparently.
I'll take it.
Ooh, I like that.
I'll take it.
Weirdly, it depends on what happens in the Turkey game, I think.
That's right.
Yeah, it'd be about goals and stuff like that.
So we will know in a few days as well. We do know that Denmark will be playing Germany in the next round because they drew 0-0 with Serbia.
Yeah. Can I
deep dive on that game?
Yeah, well, what I do want to say is something that cannot go unsaid is that Denmark finished ahead of Slovenia because they had a 1 point better disciplinary record, which is like a proper nerd's way of doing it.
Do you know what that 1 point was?
Was it a yellow card for someone, presumably?
For an assistant coach.
But I'll tell you what,
send him home.
I think it's a bit of a shame because otherwise, presumably, they'd have drawn lots, wouldn't they?
It would have gone down to
corners.
It's qualifying. Is it qualifying?
Qualifying record, then coin flip, maybe.
God, imagine the old coin flip.
Just get it out and measure it.
Yeah,
get out and measure it.
It's an arm wrestle between who everyone agrees is the weakest player in each squad.
Right,
yes.
nice.
Yeah. Okay. Serbia finished bottom of the group. Didn't have a shot on target until stoppage time in that game. And Aleksandar Mitrovic got a yellow card.
He also got he had a really good chance, which he put quite far wide. I mean, this game is basically been instantly forgotten about. No one's ever going to talk about this game ever again.
In the same with England, but unfortunately, being English, we are.
We've done half an hour on it.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Coming up in the second half, I promise you, no more England. See you in a moment.
Thank you so much for being with us. Just firstly, give us a sense of what you're up to today. Oh, up to really supporting England. Just finished off an advert for Budweiser, which has been very interesting. And I think the great thing about supporting England is you can support England from all over the country, not just at the games, but in pubs and bars, just enjoying a nice glass of Budweiser.
I remember
Jeff Hurst there. Jeff Hurst.
A nice cold glass of Mossad. I remember talking to Simon Bates, the legendary kind of radio DJ from
Radio 1 guy.
Radio 1
back in the day,
yeah. I don't know what he does now, but he was saying that back in the day when in like at road shows and stuff on Radio 1, he would sort of come on air and go, "Oh yes, wonderful band just been on the stage, but as I present to you here in a field in Stoke, I could just see an Emirates flight flying above me and stuff, and he would just get free flights and stuff.
Yeah.
Wow,
it was
really?
Shameless back then.
That still happens
it's a
now,
real
yeah.
throwback for what we used to
He's
hashtag ad.
He's but the thing is, Jeff's already being paid for that, isn't he?
I just get the sense that Budweiser wouldn't want Sir Jeff Budweiser would not want Sir Jeff to do that.
Right,
because it was hack.
Simon Bates
Pete defending him.
Simon Bates is currently broadcasting on Boom Radio. On Sunday afternoons between 2 and 4 p.m. He also does a Saturday show, 1970s on Boom Radio Saturdays, 12 to 2.
He used to do Classic FM and wait about 5 minutes before going, the unmistakable sound of Rick Manoff.
Yes, it's an amazing job, that Classic FM job. It's the easiest job in radio. Yeah. Every so often you just go, the unmistakable sound of Beethoven.
Strauss.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, it's because, I suppose particularly, like, no one's releasing new music, are they?
No.
Then as soon as you hit the button for the next number, it's
plenty of
off
time.
for a shower.
Yeah.
It's got like 15 minutes. Great stuff, isn't it? Can't get away with that on the ramble.
You cannot. The Austrian players will need a shower after that one because they beat Netherlands 3-2 and did an awful lot of running. It's
like a different sport, isn't it?
Yeah.
And yet, despite what I just said, actually, didn't look that tired. I mean, my goodness, they have been one of the teams of the tournament. Ralph Rangnick getting a beautiful Mozart-style tune out of this lot. It's been amazing. They finished top of the group, and I love the fact they finished top of the group because we always say, don't we, when you do your predictors for the tournament, how it'll pan out, you go, it'll never pan out.
Never does.
Never does. And you think, well, France are one of the big hitters, the big hitter for my money pre-tournament. The Netherlands are a big name, but Austria have finished top. The Dutch looked a bit tired, couldn't keep up with Austria. As I say, thank goodness England are not going to get Austria in the second round. Well, and again, there was a chat on our WhatsApp group, wasn't it? And I was like, because Andy's obviously seen Netherlands in the flesh and so on, which I think gives you a little bit more of an idea sometimes. And I said, Andy, would you rather the Dutch or the Austrians in the next one? He goes, Dutch all day long. And that's despite the fact that the quality they have. Gakpo is someone who can produce something, and Depay played well and whatnot. But
they look they look as bad as England in a different way.
Yeah, but at least they've scored a few goals. That's the best bit of football. But Austria, the system is working an absolute wonder. If you look through the Austria squad, they've got a couple of, obviously, Sabitzer being one of their big players. He plays for Dortmund. You've got a couple of guys play for Dortmund. They've got one guy's on, I say, the books of Bayern. I'm not sure. He's not one of their star names. A few, one or two RB Leipzig players. So some good and decent German clubs. But elsewhere, this is not a star-studded group of players.
No, and the thing is here, and we come on to Netherlands in a minute, I'm sure, with Austria, is you're watching them, and even if you're just a layman when it comes to watching football, you only watch tournaments, you can see what they're doing. And what it is an amazing example of essentially egoless football.
Yeah.
It's we're playing to this system.
Uh-huh.
Ralph Rangnick's obviously said to them, if we play in this way, this gives us the best chance of doing well.
Yeah.
And we are Austria. We're not...
That's right.
Germany or France or whatever, or even England in this case.
Their best footballing days were in the 1930s.
Right, and so this gives us the best chance. So if we all buy into this, we can give ourselves an amazing chance of doing well. I personally believe the caveat to that is it's easier to do that with a team like Austria than it is for a team like France or England or whatever, for all the obvious reasons. But like I say, it's an amazing watch because it's a full. What it is actually is a full understanding that football is a team game, and this is how you go about doing it, and that. Also, what's really interesting to me, and I know it's easier said than done, is like the majority of the stuff they do is like super basic.
Yeah.
It's run really fucking hard, organised well by being coached in the press properly. They all go at the same time. They all have their triggers, which they all know about. As I said earlier, they make the pitch massive when they've got the ball, which makes it hard to defend against, and they make it really small when they haven't got the ball. And there's no real reason why any team can't do that. They just do it better than anyone else.
Well, Rangnick has proven that you can make a big difference if you're a coach at international level. And you said that they're more likely to do it at Austria than, say, one at
But they're more likely to buy into it.
Possibly. I mean, that's on a case-by-case basis.
You have to leave less at the door.
But I know the point I say about, Austria played their best football in the 1930s. I understand that was, only a few decades before England played their best football. But they're not a big footballing nation. Do you know what I mean? They're not like, say, the Netherlands, who you think maybe they've not
a big nation.
But they've not, they've not sort of like maybe not done so well at recent tournaments. So they're a bit different. It's been a long time since Austria really did anything. 1978 was their big result when they beat West Germany, and that is like one of their big footballing memories. They've not created too many memories since then. I understand in the last Euros, what was it, second round, and just got beaten by Italy, but still, there's not a lot to feast on there. And it's very difficult, I think, sometimes to get a group of players who are from a country where their recent history hasn't been great to get a bit of confidence and say, look, I understand that. Let's make, like Southgate did with England when he first started, let's make new memories. Let's try and forge a different path.
Well, the
psychological thing that Rangnick has done and is doing, he's to the point, people are saying now they could go all the way because they're on the half of the draw without some of these big teams.
Yeah.
People will say, rightly so, that they might be the most fancied team now on that half of the draw. That's where he's got.
I think they are.
There you go.
I think they are.
There you go.
I think there's also a recent history of teams that aren't fancied winning this tournament.
But the confidence they have.
Yeah.
That's not just, this has been going on before the tournament. What he has done to elevate those players physically, but also emotionally, it's an incredible job.
But it's confidence through accountability, though, isn't it? It's like as soon as someone's got a ball, if there's two players around them, they just make themselves available.
Yeah.
They pull away from the attending player effectively, and they give themselves a little bit of space. It's not football's quite a simple game when you look at it like that. But if you do that a million times a match, you're going to win a football match.
Well,
aren't you?
It's creating the team ethics, it's creating the partnerships within that, and so on. Everyone's helping each other out. But they've also, it sounds like actually we're reducing them here. They've scored goals, and they've scored quality goals. And they're a match for anybody.
I find it interesting that Ralph Rangnick...
They've been the team, in some regards, team of the tournament.
I think it's interesting that Ralph Rangnick is seen as like a really intelligent kind of football thinker, very influential, a lot of coaches under his tutelage and all the rest of it. And to me, the thing I couldn't get out of my mind watching this game against Netherlands yesterday is that... he obviously turns down the Bayern job like 2 or 3 months ago, which is a massive opportunity for a coach of his profile, given that what happened at Manchester United and given his reputation suffered a bit. And he turned it down. right?
Yeah,
And part of me just thought, okay, so here's my turn. He doesn't want to do it because of some other reason, because Bayern Munich's a massive club and it's really pressure and all the rest of it, and he's happy where he is. I actually wonder if he looked at his Austria squad and thought, I think we've got something here, and I don't want to. I'll do it after, but I might have my pick of the jobs after because we're fucking flying.
Yes,
and when you see them really go toe to toe with France. I know they lost the game, but it's only for an own goal, and France have had their own problems. I feel like they properly arrived yesterday.
Yeah.
I don't think Netherlands are without their faults by any means, but that's a big ask for them.
Yeah.
And they also, the way they responded to setbacks during that game as well, they didn't deviate or divert.
Yeah.
I mean, look at that compared to England.
Oh my
England
goodness.
shit their pants when they score a fucking goal, let alone when someone else scores.
Night and
so
day.
it's a really interesting prospect. I totally believe. I think the betting odds for Austria are all wrong, by the way. I think Austria are a massive price given the half of the draw they've got.
Indeed, and it's crucial that they're on that half of the draw. The reason for that is because those players are not as experienced as maybe some others in the other side of the group are going in deep in tournaments. You've got to build that confidence. And with the way they kind of go forward and so on, that does leave them slightly vulnerable at the back. The Dutch scored 2 goals.
But they rested players yesterday as well. Like Baumgartner and Lima didn't play.
Yeah.
Well, didn't start, sorry.
Indeed. But as the tournament goes on, that's where you can begin to arrest this sort of stuff. And like I say, there's not a side in there in that half of the draw. I mean, maybe, Belgium might end up in that side of the draw, but even then, I don't. They wouldn't be scared of Belgium. They really have a chance to create an enormous piece of history here. Even if it was, even if it was a semi-final defeat or something, just to create that new memory and to go, do you know what? Das Team, as they're affectionately nicknamed, have really put their mark, and that would be good for generations to come.
2 great goals in that game as well, by the way. Sabitza's goal was a beauty.
That's when you're near post like that. Any young strikers or roof it.
It's hard for the keeper to save it. And Depay's goal was a beauty as well, by the way.
Yeah,
so there's a great movement for the finish. Yeah, proper like Hollywood stuff.
And little kung fu-y, wasn't it?
Yeah,
he played well, and the Dutch are still alive. We've been critical of them, and we say with regards to England, but they've got better players. Yeah, well,
leave it a day until they're confirmed as England opponents, and we'll be like, well, they're brilliant.
Yeah,
but not expect anything from us against that lot.
True, but I mean, look,
he's got a headband.
But they've got a manager who would be on paper one of the better managers at the tournament. They've got some decent defenders in there, and they've got some decent forwards. So really, they'll be expecting more from their own side. From what they expect. So it'll be very interesting to see who they get in the next round. France, of course, very surprisingly drew 1-1 with already eliminated Poland. I mean, I didn't really see that one coming, but then they haven't been great.
Did the mask get dispatched from the goalkeeper, the Polish goalkeeper?
No,
he spoke about.
He brought his own mask.
He brought his own mask.
He took it off when he scored.
He did.
Yeah, there's me nose. It's fine.
That's annoying when they do that, because it's like, I'll do this for Instagram. I'll take the mask off.
Yeah.
I didn't notice him until the mask came off. After that, I was convinced.
Like,
it is him. He has scored.
That's right.
Is that when people are like, oh, is that Superman or Clark Kent? Well, he's got glasses. Doesn't look like Superman. He's got glasses.
Throws people off.
Yeah.
Can you not slick your hair that far back? There he is. Yeah.
So a lot of these teams have got problems, right?
Yeah.
A lot of these teams are finding it hard to get fire in. I wonder whether there's something in the idea that the amount of top level football the very top players are having to play is having an effect, and it plays into the hands of a team like Austria, perhaps. Having said that, Sabitzer went deep in the Champions League with Dortmund, and he still looks good. Bruno Fernandes played every single second of every minute of every game in history, and he still looks fine.
He loves it.
But the problem with France is they've got a completely different problem to England, which is they've got Mbappe. Everyone looks to Mbappe. He's the biggest, highest profile player, arguably in the world. I think Vish was saying the other day he thinks on his day he's the best player in the world.
No way.
They can't do anything without him. They can't win games without him. That's the problem. The last 7 or 8 games they've played without him, they haven't won.
Well, I mean, obviously Deschamps has been there and done it with France, but it does feel like he's just kind of going, yeah, it'll happen, don't worry. A little bit.
That's kind of how they've done it, yeah.
It is how they've done it, but I wonder if this is maybe a tournament too much for Deschamps. I think of, like, say, Yogi Löw with Germany. He stayed a little bit too long at the fair, and there could be an element of that with Deschamps, maybe. It wouldn't be surprising if France did sort it out and they went deep in the tournament.
Yeah, and the thing is with them is they've got they've got quite a plum game in the second round. I mean, they'll play the second place team in Group E, which worst case scenario is Belgium.
But France, though, have missed an opportunity here because you beat already eliminated Poland. You finished top of the group there in that half of the draw, and they'd be heavy favourites for it. But it was a Robert Lewandowski penalty that stopped them. Presumably, we all saw the penalty. Mike Mannion saved it, and then it was taken back because Mannion had come off his line, and then Lewandowski scored. I mean, Lewandowski, how was that penalty allowed?
Yeah.
What do you mean, like a one motion?
He stopped.
Right?
Yeah,
he stops twice, doesn't it?
The referee would basically. I mean, the actual answer to the question. I'm not saying I agree with it, but the actual answer to the question is the referee deems him to not fully have stopped his forward movement.
Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah.
Which I think is probably a stretch at best.
I mean, that's like going 1 mile an hour in a yellow box in an inner city. Well, I didn't actually stop. Did I? Yeah, but you held.
You still get a fine, don't you?
Yeah,
you still get a fine. I agree. I think really, it's. I mean, it'd be a cruel, hard heart indeed to take that away from him, given it's probably going to be his last meaningful contribution.
Well, if you're going to reset the penalty for the second time, I suppose you could.
Yeah, that's the annoying thing because what the referee's saying there is, I'm actually across this detail.
Yeah,
the goalkeeper did this, and he's not saying it about the striker.
That's right.
And it's not consistent, is it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously
he wasn't a great referee anyway. I mean, the fact that he didn't give that penalty in the first, but he was looking right at it from about 3 yards away, and he still needed VAR to give it.
The refereeing has been quite variable in this tournament, like up and down, and quite not theatrical. But
I've heard some of them probably can't even speak English.
Well, they're not even from Europe.
Where was this bloke? Where was this bloke from?
He's from Australia. What? Yeah. Well, let's hope that Poland. Obviously they're off home. Maybe they let's hope they don't get the kind of send off that Scotland did when they left the hotel. Did you see this? I understand it was a nice thing that Bavarian band would do.
Play them off, keyboard
when
cat.
Scotland left, but it did. From where I'm sitting, obviously it's not this. But it did sound like it was a bit of a piss.
Nobody needs umpire.
But it was better that it was sincere.
Yeah,
But the faces of the instrument, the musicians, had obviously been briefed to not look really happy. This served no one.
Yeah, I just think you needed the band leader just giving them the finger.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Get out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't put the instruments down. Go in there and chuck their stuff out.
Oh, yeah. hand the tuba to John McGinn.
Yeah.
He wants to play it.
And McGinn wasn't dancing then, was he?
Tell him there's a chip inside it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
They should have played it would have been better if they played the Star Wars Cantina music.
Nice, nice.
A
little bit,
I mean, for those who haven't seen this, as the Scotland players leave, obviously they look downbeat because they're not very happy. But the music is a bit as they're going off.
Stepped on, son. Johnny Briggs.
I don't know.
It's just not necessary, is it?
It didn't need that.
England, do you know what England will have? England will have Scooter as they go off.
Some happy hardcore.
Yeah.
Hands in the air. No, piss off.
Yeah.
Piss off. Today, we've got football.
Yeah.
We've got football.
Thankfully, it's back.
We've got 2 games at 5 o'clock. We've got 2 games at 8 o'clock. You know the drill. Everybody. Slovakia versus Romania and Ukraine versus Belgium. And, of course, at 8 p.m. tonight, Georgia versus Portugal and Czech Republic versus Turkey. All 4 teams in that group with Slovakia, Romania, Ukraine and Belgium are on 3 points. Group E, of course, it's the first time in European Championship history that this has happened going into the final round of fixtures. Permutations all over the gaff. Don't take your eyes off it.
What's Permutations Corner saying?
Apparently it's only happened once before in World Cup history as well. Also in Group E back in USA 94.
Nice.
94.
I would like Ukraine to win.
Would you?
It's good to see that we've got England's Anthony Taylor refereeing that game as well.
Nice.
So,
Yeah.
look forward to some very slow VAR decisions and to slow everything down.
Yeah.
Look, it's poised, perfectly poised. Obviously, I'd like to see Ukraine do it. I just think it's funny when big nations go out. And Belgium are the only possible team you can think of in international football that rival England as underachievers. And we need to maintain that tradition.
Yeah, but no, I think England is still way out in front on
Yeah, but Belgium are the only ones you could possibly
I used to
argue.
love Spain because they were doing us a solid.
Yeah. And they even lost lots of penalties when we were shit at penalties.
And they really put all that to bed, didn't they?
Yeah. What, 3 in a row? No problem.
Firmly to bed for 100 years.
Yeah.
Have you seen that former Romania international Delut Lupu has claimed a draw has been arranged between Romania and Slovakia because that would mean they were both guaranteed to qualify if they drew.
We didn't need this.
Yeah.
We didn't need this.
Yeah, we do.
So Delut Lupu scored a penalty for Romania against Republic of Ireland in World Cup 90 in the shootout.
Yeah.
Which Republic of Ireland obviously went on to win with Is it David O'Leary scored the winning penalty?
That's right, I think so.
I think it was. And he looked amazing then. He looked like a proper kind of late 80s, early 90s, long hair, mullet kind of guy.
Yeah.
I remember from memory, he had his socks rolled right down. And he was really like languid and tired, and he took his penalty. I think he scored it. I can't remember. He looks insane now. Have you seen what he looks like now?
Well, I'm guessing from what he said there, I can sort of.
He's been like 20 years retired, though, hasn't he?
Yeah, I'm just saying he's
very different.
He's maintained the hair.
That's great.
Oh God, yeah.
You never lose it.
But I love that though. Whenever there is, because inevitably, well, not inevitably, but if indeed it's very rare for a group to pan out like this, as we've just said. But if it does, then yes, two teams that are playing each other, which we've seen before in the past, a draw could be good and blah 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 blah. But I love that it just takes one person to go, it's already been arranged. Conspiracy theory.
He's based like a total character. Like, he spent time in jail when he's playing in Greece. He got busted for shoplifting when Dinamo Bucharest were playing a game in Scotland in Europe. I think he got busted for having his car pulled over with like 100,000 euros in the glove box. Like he's a proper character.
Yeah.
And the word character is a word I'll use on this show when legally I can't use any other word.
Yes.
He's a character.
Or could you call him an agent of chaos or an agent for
Mossad?
Anyone else's mentions an absolute mess this week?
Yeah, mine was.
Yeah.
I got mine. I've been inundated
Constant Mossad.
with people calling me stupid for not immediately accepting Robert Maxwell was a Mossad agent. I don't care. That's not the point of this. The point of this is obvious, and it's not that.
Nobody talks like that whole thing. Like they just talk about Ghislaine Maxwell as if she doesn't have a very different role in our brains now.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, what? She did other stuff. Was she in another band before?
Yeah, it's a bit different from being like, well, Gary Lineker won the Golden Boot.
Yeah. It's like finding out Bjork was in the Sugar Cube.
Yeah.
As I said to you, a couple of people messaged me on Twitter saying, I didn't know what this was all about, but I thought it was quite funny anyway. And I was about to say, I'll tweet him back. Well, you probably should be aware of Ghislaine Maxwell. Why am I having this conversation?
Do not bother.
So there was an island. Sorry.
Bloody hellfire. So yes, we could see something quite incredible this evening, or something quite questionable. Keep watching the skies.
I mean, Daniel Lupo is a maniac. I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay, all right, well, there we are.
Thanks for watching a clip from the Football Ramble podcast. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a video. And if you're feeling extra generous, why don't you like this video? Why don't you like this video?